Hey everybody. In this next video, I'm going to be looking at behaviors in Stencyl. So these work very similar to how they work in GDevelop. So this should look pretty familiar, or it's not exactly a one-to-one translation, but it's a pretty close, a similar setup. So we'll be going into some of the behaviors that are built into Stencyl, and then looking at some additional behaviors that you can pull from the web. So I'll start by sharing my screen. And as you can see, I have Stencyl already open. So I'm going to start with a brand new project. And notice how I do have the crash course kit in here now. I've imported this crash course into my Stencyl, and I really highly recommend everyone downloading it and checking it out. I'll show you here soon in a minute why, but check out Crash Course 1 and 2. They both have really great info, not just the website and the link, but the assets they come with. The Crash Course 1 comes with a full Stencil project, whereas number 2 comes with mostly just art assets, but it's still valuable to see how these things can be imported from not the Stencil Forge. So I'm going to create a blank game. I'm going to hit next. I'm going to call this behavior demo. I'm going to keep it 640 by 480 and hit create. Okay, so I've got my project in here, or well, just got my game project created. I am going to go to the Stencil Forge. I'm going to find a character, and I am going to use the Stencil Book Monkey. So if I hit download, I will be imported into this actors tab, so I can see all of my animations over here. And that's why I'm picking this character. It has animations for walking left and right, idling left and right, and jumping left and right. And then kind of just a regular idle standing. Now, there are no behaviors attached here. This is another reason why I'm downloading this. So I'm going to be creating behaviors as I go or pulling them in from Stencil Forge and other places. But um, I'm going to start from scratch on the behaviors. There are some things, some assets. Be aware that if you download certain characters from here, from the Stencil Forge, some of them have behaviors already built in. I'm not sure about all of them. I think Nani or Mona, one of the little square Mambo. There we go. I think Mambo has some behaviors already installed, and some of these are all they're not all uniform. Some are featured content, and you can see that with this green featured tab. Others are kind of like user created content. So this is a little Mario character, a green Koopa. These are not like Stencil original artworks. So anyways, I have my monkey character here, and this is going to be my player. So I need to create a scene, and we'll call this level 1. Okay, and now I'm in my scene view. I'm going to install a tile set and just kind of place my tile sets in here, just so I can have some artwork. Again, I will get this from the Stencil Forge. The tile sets aren't that bad from there, especially if you're just trying to get something up and fabricated. The Stencil Book tile set is pretty good. I also like Blob's Mixed Grass, and I do like Grassland tile set. This is for the Crash Course 1. I'm going to choose the Stencil Book tile set in this case, though. I think it keeps with the theme of the monkey and the visual style. I'm going to hit download. Now, you see in the Stencil Forge, there's only this one little corner icon. But if we go to the Stencil Book tile set, once we download this file into our project, we'll be taken to the tile set window or tab. And this is where we can see tile set info. And I've kind of covered this a little bit previously, but this is actually my full tile set. And if I click on any of these pieces, it shows me what kind of collision bounds they have kind of registered on here. Most of these are going to be that upper rectangle area, but that's what we're going to be checking for collision most of the time. All right, so this is my tile set. Looks good. We can go to properties. This is really just your name and description. So back to my dashboard, go into my scene, so level 1. And now I have my tiles over here. So I can start placing these, and we'll just make a flat ground. have it raised up a little bit. And you can select multiple frames. And you can just click and hold to paint as well. All right. And maybe I might make a little bit of a hole kind of cut out in the ground here. So if I want to delete any of these tiles, I can click on this cursor and just select each individual tile and hit delete. You can also use this as like a selection cursor like that and select multiple elements that are clicked on or in that layer that you have selected. And note right now I am in layer 1 or layer 0. If I want to add any layers, I just hit this plus button down here. I can add a regular tile layer or I can add a background layer, which is just going to be an image kind of stretched upon the background. I don't have any background images. I'm not too concerned with that right now. So I'll just clean this up. There we go. Good enough. Okay, so now let's add our character in there. And there we go. So right now, if I play this, let's save, nothing's going to happen. It might take a second to play test. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So I'm playtesting and I press my keys and nothing's happening, right? I just have my actors in the scene. I don't have anything hooked up. Now, there's a couple of different ways we can hook up logic in our games in Stencyl. We can make use of behaviors. And so if you look at this tab, you'll see behaviors. We can also make use of events. And if I click on this tab, I can look at my events. Now I am in my scene right now. So I'm in level 1. So my events and behaviors that I add here are going to be different than the events and behaviors that I add to, say, my character player or any other kind of objects that I have in my game, whether they be coins and collectibles or other enemies or enemies. And other kind of interactable objects, keys and doors, things that you collide with, different platforms, and so forth. So you want to just be aware of that. Again, just like in GDevelop, where we have scene variables and global variables and object variables, we also have different behaviors and events according to whichever kind of object we have selected or actor. So if I'm in level 1 right now, again, I'll cover events in another video, but these are events. This is going to be where you're doing most of your block coding. And this is like the nuts and bolts coding of Stencyl. Now, what this video is about adding behaviors. And I'm not actually going to be adding any behaviors to my level, although I will be maybe editing some things in here. I am going to go over here to my character, though, and click on my behaviors tab, and I'm going to add behaviors. Now, behaviors, just like the namesake in GDevelop, are pre-made bits of code and logic that you can add on to a game object that allow it to function and do a lot of kind of basic video gamey things. So some of these are movement, some of these are looking at projectiles, following certain objects, and so forth. So if I click here to choose a behavior to attach, I have several options here. Now, these are going to be at the top, we have from this game and all. Right now, because I have a new game, I have not imported any behaviors into this project yet. Now, GDevelop comes with, Stencyl comes with several behaviors built in, and you can see that from your library, this little tab under here. And there are several categories, starting with controls, and this deals with kind of like how do you control an object? Are you adding forces? So like maybe this would be for a jump, or if you're kicking an object, in this case, this little image right there, or are you pushing something, right? We have two-way horizontal movement, so it allows movement on the x-axis. We have two-way vertical movement, so moving up and down. This These could both be used for enemies or NPCs or kind of any kind of, yeah, NPC walking around, enemies, or especially the vertical movement, kind of an enemy obstacle flying up and down in the sky. You also have four-way movement. Four-way movement is common for top-down games. Think of Enter the Gungeon or the original Zelda games, a lot of these top-down dungeon games. Same with eight-way movement. And these can also be used for traditional platforming games. So think of Flappy Bird. You only are moving up and down, so that would just be two-way movement. Think of any kind of, let's see, endless runner, maybe 2D endless runners. Well, I guess those would maybe be more vertical movement. Horizontal movement would be thinking about like a paddle for a space bubble pop game or something like that. Um, or like Pong paddles or something like that. Asteroid movements, um, face the mouse. So again, enter the gungeon, fire bullets. So using some sort of input and firing a projectile. Drag and drop. So making items drag and drop. And there's several others. There's even jump and run movement, which is what I'll be showcasing. There's eye candy too, so doing different kind of effects. Flickering on collision, this could be used if you're colliding with an enemy and you want your player to have like a brief second of invulnerability and you want them to flash to show that they've taken damage. Game, camera follows, different aspects. We have even GUI or GUI or UI behaviors. So anchor to screen if you want to set up like a health bar or any other kind of UI components to a certain point in your screen space. We have a lot of motion. Again, these are really good for NPCs as well. And I'll showcase some of these. These are really great and pretty straightforward. Some of these, though, do not work that well. We also have in rules, Health Manager. This is a good one. It adds on a health bar. Die on collision, I've used that before too. So if you collide with an object like a coin or something or a collectible, and you want your player to pick that up and it immediately vanish, you're going to use die on collision. So a lot of these are really great. Now, for my player, I'm going to want to use control and down at the bottom, jump and run. I'm going to hit choose. And so now we have several options for this behavior. And I can toggle this up and down, or excuse me, I can toggle this off and on by just hitting this deactivate behavior in the top right. And you'll see I get this little circle with a slash through it. And I can see it over here in my list. This list on the far right where it says default is the list of all the behaviors that I have attached to my monkey player character, my Stencyl book monkey. Now, there's a few things that I might want to set up for this. I'm going to reactivate my behavior by clicking the activate behavior. Also note that after I've added one, my little kind of invisible button that was used to add my first behavior isn't available. All you have to do is go down to the bottom left, and there is an add behavior and a remove behavior. So right now there's only one behavior. And if I hit remove and remove it, I'm going to remove it. I can also add a behavior from here too. And now that I have added jump and run movement into my game once, it is in my game. So you can see that now my from this game library has jump and run movement. I'm going to choose that. And we'll take a look at this. So we'll start with the attributes. This one says use controls. So do I use controls? In this case, yes. So I'm going to use move left, move right, or jump. Now, you can also do jump and run movement for an NPC or an enemy. You can add this on there and uncheck this box, and then you can kind of adjust some of these values and play around with this, and you can use it in part with other behaviors with kind of AI or enemies. But for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to use this for player movement. All right, so left control, right control, jump. These are the three buttons that I need to set up. So I can just drop this down and say what I want to use. I'm going to use left for my left control, right for my right control, and for my jump, there's no space. I'm a big space for jump guy. So I'm going to add the space in here. And remember, to do that, we have to just hit settings, go down to controls, hit this add new control. I'm going to name it space bar. And I'm going to select right here where it says key, and then I'm just going to press whatever key I want to use. In this case, it's space. So I hit space, you'll see the little icon changes, the name changes, and I'm going to hit OK. Now I'll hit save, but this still won't show up initially. What I have to do is close out of this tab and open it back up. So I just go back over here to my dashboard and think about the dashboard as the main hub of your entire project. This is where you're going to be accessing everything in your game. So I'm going to go to my actor, double click on the monkey, and now I'll just hit the behaviors tab and I'm right back where I was. So now if I hit jump, control, drop this down, and scroll down, now I have my spacebar available. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit further, and I see I have to include some animations here. So this is how the behavior knows to switch direction and set up different animations according to what's going on. So fortunately, this character has animations. If you're making your own characters, you want to be aware that Stencyl wants left and right facing animations. So even if it's just an idle, you need to include both a idle right and an idle left. Now, these are the same images, just flipped. A lot of game engines, you can automate this to say, or well, not necessarily automate this, but you don't need to include the second image because they can kind of flip it naturally. Without this, if you use events, you can probably do this yourself, but if you're using these behaviors, that's just kind of what a lot of them require. So we go back over here to my monkey, go to my behavior. I'm going to do each one of these animations. So starting with idle left, idle right, run left. Let's see. There we go. Run right, jump left, and jump right. Now, most of these animations, the jump animations are just one frame, but it's still kind of a pain to have to put in one for each direction. So if you have a character that's swinging a sword or casting a spell, you're going to have to do that twice, and you're just going to flip it each time. Now you can, if you just have one image, you can edit these images in Stencyl. So if I go to Appearance, and I can hit Edit Frames, it'll send you to an external, I think it's called Pixelator art program. It's kind of like a cross between Microsoft Paint and Photoshop. And I think I touched on it in one of the previous videos, but you can just easily flip images and then import them into your project. But again, it's just kind of a pain. Okay, so I have my animation set up. Jump animation when falling. So I'm going to check that. So if the character is falling off of a platform, they will be playing the jump animation and not the idle animation. So it's not just triggering on the jump. The variable jump, this allows you to, if the player holds a jump key, they jump higher. If they just tap it, they are going to jump a shorter distance. I'm going to leave this off for now. And I'm going to leave all these values kind of as is just to see what this looks like. Okay, so I'm going to hit save. And now I'm going to test my game. Okay, so I can move left, I can move right. Now my character's kind of sliding, and I don't really like that. Now if I press space, my character is not jumping, right? So this is kind of a funky behavior. So what I can do is go into my level, I can go into my physics, and I can change my gravity. Now in a previous video, I think I mentioned that putting in a gravity of 85 is kind of like the natural gravity feel in Stencyl. That's like the typical like sweet spot. So let's hit save. Let's see what that looks like. Let's see if my character continues to slide. Okay, so there we go. So now my character is walking properly, left and right. They're idling whenever they should be idling, and whenever they jump, they're jumping. So just adding gravity onto the scene makes a big difference. So be careful whenever you're setting up your levels. If something doesn't seem right, sometimes these behaviors don't always work, but sometimes if you just set up your level properly, that can make a big difference. So that's one of the great things about these behaviors. You can really use them to, let's see where I'm at, to set up your game really quickly. Now, like I said, not all of these behaviors are created equal. I will say some of them are a little bit different than others. I ran into an issue where if let's see, I'll go over here, go to my Stencil Forge, and let's look at some of these behaviors. We'll go to most useful, and you might notice that there's a lot of these that have this similar icon. It looks like an old school retro game with this kind of like beige-ish, not beige, but kind of like brown sandstony border and this kind of black background. There's jumping, walking, follow player, stompable, stomp on enemies. There's a time count. There's running, pick up coin, and ride platforms. Some of these are features. The riding platform is featured. These should work. They do not work. For whatever reason, they're just kind of funky. So if I import this one, I'll download this. Now you'll see that it immediately opens this up, and I'm looking at the kind of code block. So with every behavior, it has code block that you can go in and edit. Even with my jump and run movement, if I go over to the top right next to the deactivate button, if I go to the edit behavior, I'll open up this specific behavior and I can look at all of the block code that makes this up. So there is an update function or an update event. This event updates regularly for every frame. And I'm not going to get too far into the weeds with these events, but we'll circle back to this in an events video. But you can change these behaviors yourself. So if you get errors that like a behavior is not working, which with some of these behaviors you will get, then you can edit these yourself. But sometimes if you're going to be doing that, it's just worth it to make the own blocks yourself, because some of these can get really convoluted and tricky to fix. You'll also see this in the created tab. There are or created event, there are comments in this walking one, and it's saying what you need. Now this is saying on ground. It's a Boolean actor level attribute, so these are showing all the variables that need to be created and are included here. And it says you'll need the on ground behavior required. Okay, well, where is the on ground behavior? It's not in here. And because the search bar is so messed up, you can't find it in here, right? So you have to go on the web and look for this. But even then, this behavior doesn't always function that well. So anyways, just be wary of your behaviors and what you're getting. Note that not all of them will work. This jump and run, actually not that bad though. So I'm going to close out of this jump or that walking. I'm going to close out of the jump and run tab itself. And I'm going to actually remove this walking behavior from my game because it's going to give me issues if I try and play. Even if I'm not using this, it'll still kick out an error when I try and play test. Okay, so let's see. We can add another behavior. We can add another object. We'll add in, let's see, we'll go to the Stencyl Forge. We'll go to actors. And we'll maybe choose this snake. And now download the snake. Notice there's no animations. That's okay. I'll call this idle. No behaviors attached. Perfect. Now I'm going to use this snake and I'm going to use it to kind of patrol back and forth. If I go to my behaviors and let's go to motion. Now there are several behaviors here. I'm going to use back and forth horizontal and hit choose. Now, if you remember, if I go to controls, there's something similar here, but remember, this is in control. So this is more looking for input and more created for a player character. Whereas if I go to motion, this is for like moving objects. It can be an enemy, it can be an obstacle, could be a platform, could be anything. So I'm going to hit back and forth horizontal and choose. And notice with this behavior, I don't have quite as many options here. I can still click that edit behavior and edit. I can still deactivate it. And there's there's no need for like animations or anything. I can look at distance left and distance right, initial direction and speed. So let's just see what this looks like by default. This is set in pixels. I believe this is pixels per second. The speed, I'm not 100% certain on that one. I am certain this is pixels distance though. And this is going to be looking from distance left and distance right of where you set the player or the object in your scene. So if I go to my level 1 scene, go to my scene view, select my paint pen, and select my actor, my snake character. I'm going to put my snake right over here. I'm actually maybe going to move my monkey over to this side. Now, let's just see what this looks like. I'm going to save and hit play. Okay. So we can see my snake is moving, but boy, is that snake moving really slow, right? So we can do a few things. One, I can go back to my snake object or my snake tab. I can go into my behaviors. I can change the speed. That was so slow. I'm going to multiply that times 10. So I'm going to do 100 instead of 10. I'm going to save that and I'm going to play test again. All right, now that is way too fast, but that's looking much better. So we'll split the difference and say 50. Maybe not the exact half, but let's test that. And I can also change, how this looks by changing the distance, right? That's still a little fast, but that's getting there. Let's maybe try 20. Double what our initial value was. Oh, now it's really slow. Wow. So we can play around with this. We can play around the distance as well. If we have a really short platform for our enemy, then we can shorten that distance. If we have a really long platform, we can edit that as well. And we can change the speed. You can change the initial direction. So some of these behaviors are really convenient. We can also do things like, I'll go to my dashboard or actually my forge, and I'm going to add a coin. There we go. Let's see here. We have a little spinning coin. I don't like that one. It's like a 3D coin. It looks a little funky. Maybe we'll do bananas. Monkeys like bananas, right? So I'll download the bananas and we'll just call this idle. And for this behavior, we'll make this like a collectible that the monkey can pick up. So the player can collect bananas while trying to avoid the snakes. It's a classic platformer. So I'm going to hit add a behavior and I'm going to add one more behavior. And let's see. Try a game, maybe rules. We'll try a die on collision and I'll hit choose. So whenever this collides with another object, it will die. It will disappear. So we want our bananas to be collectible. And we'll kind of edit or add an event to add a counter or increase a health whenever that happens. But for now, we just want our bananas to be deleted when they are touched. So I'll grab this, select the banana, and we'll maybe put them right over here. And maybe another one right over here. Okay, so let's play test and see. Oh, I should have saved. So let's play test and see what this looks like. Nope. So first off, my bananas just disappeared. And I need to change a few things with my bananas. Because these are going to be collectible objects, they're going to be floating in space. So I need to change the physics for these. Um, Starting at the top, what kind of actor are these? These are going to be normal, but do I want these to rotate? No. And do I want these to be affected by gravity? No, I do not. So I'm going to uncheck those two boxes, or well, change those two values. We'll hit save, and now we'll test this out. Oh, so now my collision's not quite working here with my bananas. So um, let's see what is going on here. So let's go to collision. We have a little mask here, right? So we know that's good. What I need to do is go to my properties. I need to change my group and edit this group. So I'm going to drop down this group, and there are a couple pre-made options for me in here. I have actors, doodads, players, regions, and tiles. I'm going to edit these groups. I'm going to make a new one. I'm going to call it collectibles. This is going to be for anything that my player picks up and will interact with. So now I have this group collected or selected, created. I'm going to go down to this little section where we have collides with. Everything you want this group to interact with or be able to collide with, you need to check. The only thing I want my collectibles to collide with is my player. So I'm going to click my player button, and you'll see it turns green. Now I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to change this group for my banana to collectibles. So now my player should be able to collide with my bananas. So let's hit save and let's test this game. All right, so if I jump over here, there we go. So my banana or my player is colliding with my bananas, and my player is moving and jumping, and my snake character over there is slowly moving back and forth. Now I need to fix that, but that's the basics of working with behaviors. I know this is kind of a long video, but hopefully this kind of explains this. I do want to note as an aside, some of these behaviors don't work great, and I mentioned that early on. I mentioned that several times. I'm going to save this project. I'm going to save my game, and I'm going to go to my dashboard. Actually, I'm going to go to close game, save again. And I'm going to open up my Stencyl crash course. Now, the behaviors that come in here do work. And one thing you should know is that you can pull behaviors from other games or other projects into your own projects. It's really easy. And what I would really suggest doing, if you want to use these behaviors, which when these work, these are really wonderful and great, you just have to pull them from this crash course project and not from the Stencyl Forge. All you have to do is select the walking or whichever behavior you want to add and hit export, and then it will export it wherever you want it to export. So I'm going to put it in my downloads, and this is called walking.png. Usually PNGs are like image files, right? I'm going to open location. It shows it's just a PNG. It's an image file. It's kind of weird, but I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to file, close game, and not save. I'm going to open up my behavior demo, and now I'm going to, in my actor behaviors, you can do this a couple different ways, but I'm just going to drag and drop. And it should add it in here. Oh, I'm kind of getting a slowdown. There we go. So it's opened this tab up immediately, but if I go to my dashboard, you'll see that this walking is in here. And if we look at this, I'll just point this out. I'm going to rename this walking good. And I'm going to go to my Stencyl Forge, behaviors, most useful, walking, and download this one. This is from the Stencyl Forge. Okay, so I have my two walking scripts, right, or my behaviors. If I look at these, this is the good one. Notice how it only has a created and updated. This walking has created and updated, but it's got this clicked out, what is this called? Scratch blocks. There's nothing in here, and it's unchecked, so it's not being counted. It's not being hit. It's not being pinged whenever you play test. But notice how this created looks different than this created. Same with this updated is different than this updated. Now it's not worth going, and I don't have time to go into like the reasons why these aren't the same and why one works and one doesn't. Frankly, it's probably beyond my scope of working with those events and bothering with them. But note that just one of these works and one of them doesn't. And you can bring in behaviors from other projects. You can also bring in behaviors from the web. And there is one resource that I highly recommend if you're looking up behaviors and trying to bring them into your games. If you go to itch.io and look up Lurin, Layrin, I don't know. Um, there are several kind of packages that have all sorts of behaviors. Each one of these squares is a behavior. So this is for AI in combat. They have cutscene resource pack, a pools pack. The utility pack is one that I recommend. I've tested this one out. They all work. It's great, and they have like a sample project, but it comes with several. Yeah, here we go. 10 different behaviors, and these all work. Camera lock, camera zoom, a debug mode. There's the follow point. There is the basic movement and jumping as well. Let's see. There's an on ground, which is just checking for when you're grounded or when your player is on the ground. I thought I saw some other stuff. Anyways, there are a lot of really good behavior packages just here, but if you search the web, you can find some other behaviors as well. Anyways, this video has gone long enough. Hopefully this was helpful. As always, let me know if you have any questions.